What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back for another Bitcoin analysis. Of course, today's the big day. CPI announcement at 14:30 Central European Time. Just about an hour and a half after I post this video here. And we go through the exact levels that we reached now with the current dip for Bitcoin. And then we also look at Bitcoin dominance and Tether dominance today. Always Tuesdays, Bitcoin and Tether dominance. You can, of course, find the schedule always over on X, as well as everything else that I do here in the crypto space. Guys, make sure to follow me over on X as well. Patas Crypto over there to stay up to date with my analysis. And to everyone new to the channel, a warm welcome here. Nice to have you. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the analysis. And if you do, consider joining Team Bitcoin Easy by subscribing, hitting the notification bell as well, so you get notified whenever I upload new videos here on a daily basis. And yeah, guys, let's dive in now. I'm going to kick things off on the daily chart and on the 4-hourly chart for Bitcoin. We're not going into the larger time frames. We're not having any significant closes there. No 2-day close, no 3-day close, and of course, no weekly close today. So the key levels here are really much clearer anyways on the smaller time frames, as we're still looking to see if this is the bottom for the current dip. And of course, we reached the exact level that we predicted yesterday here to be the most bullish scenario for Bitcoin here to continue upwards in this trend would be to reach this area here between the gray box and the 38.2 on the daily chart. I'll get into that, and then afterwards we also look at the Bitcoin dominance chart and the Tether dominance chart and see exactly what's going on there. Right, guys, now let's look at this exactly here, see what happened. Yesterday when we were talking, we were still up here somewhere in the 104 to 105k range. And then I told you that due to the oscillators and the price action, it looks a lot like we're seeing a bit of a pullback here. But there you go, guys. A lot of people are looking at this as a certified trigger here for the price to collapse and for Bitcoin to move down to new lows. But we can easily get a correction here all the way back down here, find support in a relatively high area where we can continue here with this trend. And then, of course, the area below us comes into play, which we talked about yesterday. The most solid support level below us here in the range between 99 and 98k. There we also have the 61.8, as well as many touch points here on a price action level, very strong prior resistance and support level. And therefore, of course, we still have some room to the downside here for the correction. And that is important that we hold up there here in this range. The last resort here for Bitcoin to continue in the structure is right around 97k here on top of those prior range highs. But ideal would be to get a bounce here somewhere in this range between 99.5 and 98k, and then move upwards from there. And then we, of course, need to see here if any of this turns back into resistance, then we can potentially see a lower high, and the price is likely to move down to consolidate here and move sideways throughout the summer. This is the bearish scenario. But then, of course, we see these two levels that we have here now. This is the exact area that we spoke about in the video yesterday. Everyone was still extremely bullish on Crypto X, talking about the deal between the US and China, that Bitcoin is going to the moon now. But I told you guys very clearly the last few days that it's very likely that prior to a continuation to the upside, that we're likely to see a correction here to at least down to these levels here between 102 and 101k. And that was always going to be the most bullish scenario for Bitcoin here before it continues upwards. And then once again here, guys, this area below us, still a very strong support level if we don't hold here. And of course, we could see some bearish action if we get a bad outcome from the CPI announcement today. Let's go over to the crypto loop, actually. There it becomes much clearer. Guys, if you want to catch up on any news while blocking out the noise over on social media, then just come over to bitcoineasy.io, go into the news and analytics section here in the crypto loop. And then you can see here, you have live news stream, economic calendar, crypto X news, market overview, technical analysis, and also charting tool fully integrated from TradingView. And you can just click on any of those and it takes you right down to the section, so you don't have to start scrolling and looking for it. And here we see it, 1430 core CPI month on month, and then core CPI year on year. And there we can see that it's expected to be a bearish outcome here, that the CPI data is going up, that inflation has gone up since the last month here from 0.1%. It increased by 0.3%, but we're expecting the year-on-year data to stay the same at 2.8%. So if we see any bearish changes here, then of course this correction could continue downwards. And then we got to look at that key level right at 98k. Guys, if you see this video right now and you want to get a reminder of the event just before it takes place, then you can click on the arrow and just add it to your calendar and set up an alarm. And here you also get a full breakdown of what the event actually is, a description. Right, guys, and here you always find everything from rate announcement, CPI announcement, unemployment rates, and so on. Everything that has a big impact on the markets, not only from the US, but from here we have it set by default on G20, the strongest 20 economies in the world. But you can also pick out individual countries and look at the entire world at the same time. And then you also can take this filter out here that it shows you all the events instead of just the high importance events. Right, guys, so that's exactly what we expected, and therefore very clear here what the levels are. Otherwise, we could be breaking the structure here, where, of course, since April, we've been printing higher highs and higher lows here and are looking extremely bullish, and the market is still looking here to break the prior all-time high. Right, guys, now let's go into the smallest time frame here. This is where I posted about yesterday on X already, and this is where I pointed out the strong support that we found. We were just heading downwards to this level here. And here we see that from the prior uptrend that we had here, we have the prior resistance line that meets the key moving average here that we used to define this golden cross here, the 50 EMA, where it crossed over to 200 EMA and then started this massive rally here. And there we see that support now, as well as the 38.2 from this swing low to the current swing high here, all lining up in the same area, therefore very, very strong support. And then below there, we see the 61.8, the same Fibonacci level that we saw on the daily chart earlier here, lining up nicely with this prior range highs here, giving us a very strong support level. And as we know from the larger time frames, that support level tracks back all the way to the beginning of the year. It's very solid historic support as well. And therefore, this here is really, really the key level that needs to hold. And if we start falling below that, then we see here that it's likely that we come back down to the 200 EMA, as well as the diagonal trend line here, and a key local support area here between 94 and 93K as well. And that would make Bitcoin look extremely bearish then. If we get down here, then we see also that there's a strong probability that we find a bounce in that area. And then we could set up here for a head and shoulder pattern that could take us all the way back down to the mid to low 80K area, which of course is a very, very logical area for a bottom here and consolidation phase throughout the summer. And therefore it is very decisive now for the short to mid-term now if Bitcoin can continue upwards here in this trend and find a higher low and break the previous top. If we fail to do so, then it's very, very likely that we don't see a continuation of the current trend here towards new all-time highs until the summer's over, sometime in autumn or even winter. Of course, guys, I keep my eyes on everything and I will let you know as soon as I see confirmation on that, so that you also don't miss out on the opportunities that lay on the table then to the downside. Right, guys, and then to the upside here, we can see we found a massive bounce here. And then the key thing here to do, of course, for Bitcoin is to break this level here right at 104,800 on a 4-hourly closing basis, would then give us a nice early indication that the trend is continuing upwards. And that is something that we could expect if the CPI numbers today turn out bullish. And of course, the key level to hold here is the exact same that we had marked here from yesterday, right around $101,000 on the cent here. This is the level we want to stay above on a closing basis, especially if Bitcoin starts closing below here on a 4-hourly closing basis. Then we can expect a move here towards the 98 and 97K range, which then of course becomes decisive for the medium term for Bitcoin. And also, of course, for the entire crypto market. If you haven't checked it out yesterday, I covered all the altcoins, of course. We looked at Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Sui. And if you want to see exactly what the price targets there are, it's all exactly the same still since yesterday's video. So make sure to check out the video. It's up there in the corner somewhere now. Right, guys, so that's it here for Bitcoin. Let's go check out Bitcoin dominance now. Right, here we go. So this is the Bitcoin dominance chart, and you can see by the levels that everything turned out exactly as expected here. We lost this trend here. Of course, this is a trend within the broader trend that's clearly visible on the weekly chart and the monthly chart that we get to in a second. But here it's very clear to see that at this point exactly where we were talking last week at 64.25, that's why I told you guys, if we don't hold that level, then it's very likely that we come down here to the range above 62%. And if that fails, then we come down here to the area of 60 to 58%, which becomes very logical support on the larger time frames as well. I'll get into that in a second on the weekly chart. So here, very, very clear that this trend has broken, a very strong trend that has basically formed at the end of last year and has been solid for the last 4 to 5 months here. And now we have to see here if we can find a bounce in these key areas between 62 and 58%. If 58% breaks, then we have very, very strong indication that something is changing for Bitcoin for the very first time since 2017. But let me break down the key levels first of all here on these time frames, so you know exactly what to look out for here as far as Bitcoin dominance goes as well. So here we see obviously a very strong support level from a price action perspective. We reached the prior tops here. And then, of course, it becomes very clear that here is another very solid level. We see the 50 on the Fibonacci retracement for this entire uptrend, as well as the 200-day SMA here. And then from a price action perspective, we can see here that's also a very, very solid area of interest. And therefore, very key level here, right between 60 and 59% here is a very solid bottom. And then if you see it here on the weekly chart, then that becomes even more obvious here that that area is absolutely key, because this is then where we would also meet the 50-week SMA, which of course has been a massive support here throughout this bull market. And you can see the moment Bitcoin dominance crossed that, we went into a massive bull market here. The line in the sand really, if this trend starts breaking down, then we see early indication that we won't reach the key area of 70 to 74%, which we have always reached in prior cycles. And of course, I've talked about it a lot. I've posted about it a lot. And I said, guys, it still looks like we're going up there to 70 to 74% as the trend is still holding very strong. And we have seen similar price action here throughout the entire trend, right? We've always reached the top of this channel here, got rejected here, then reset at the support of the channel, which of course now is in perfect alignment with the 50-week SMA, as well as the 61.80 on the Fibonacci retracement. You can see a right at 59%. and that is also in perfect alignment here with the support line of this ascending channel. So really solid support level here, and we could see potentially that Bitcoin dominance drops down there, and then we could still continue upwards towards the 70 and 74% range here. But of course, that is then the decisive area. If that breaks, then it's very likely that this trend is broken down here and that Bitcoin dominance is headed down to its bottom area of 40 to 35%, and that's the area where Bitcoin dominance has bottomed out historically since 2017. We can see clearly here that in prior cycles, here's the first real alt season back in 2017. I spoke about a bunch of times that people have been drawing trend lines from up here down, connecting these tops. But of course, this makes no sense because this market here is completely different. Here we had no real altcoin market. You can see that the Bitcoin dominance was basically always between 100% and 97.5%. And then it started weakening here, the dominance, since more altcoin came into the market and took over part of the market cap. And then it became very, very clear here that alt season 1.0 started down here. That's where we reached the heights of 71% roughly. And then the bear market lows here were right between 40 and 35% always. You can see here in the prior cycle, somewhere in the high 38% region. And then prior to that, right around 35%. So that also remains to be seen if the dominance bottoms out at a higher price target, as well as that it tops out here at a lower price target. As you can see, we have always reached the 70% region here as our tops for Bitcoin dominance. So that would be a big shift in the market for the data here. If we start seeing it on the daily chart and on the weekly chart, and it will of course start drifting over here into the monthly chart as well. And then we have finally confirmation on what a lot of people have been talking about, that Bitcoin dominance won't reach the heights anymore due to the dominance of stable coins and other altcoins in the system that are taking away market cap from Bitcoin. So we haven't had proof on this yet. And if you look at it here from a monthly perspective, then it still looks very solid here. We have not engulfed the previous bullish candle here. We're still sitting in a spot where this could easily just be a consolidation here, right? Or a correction after the big push here towards 65%. And then this could continue upwards here towards 70 to 74%, right? Easily. There's no guarantee yet that this will break down. But of course, I will make sure to let you know as soon as we get confirmation here, at least on the smaller time frames already, that this is over. And this here, once again, becomes a key level. Once we see this break down here, right at 60%, we fall below the 200-day SMA here. And then it drifts over into the weekly chart, and we see that this trend here starts breaking down and Bitcoin dominance starts here challenging the 50-week SMA. Then it becomes very clear that things are changing and that we're not going up to that key area of 70 to 74% anymore. Right, guys, and if we look now at Tether dominance, which is here in white and black, the upper one, and then the lower one is Bitcoin. If we look here specifically at the 50-week SMA, which is the white moving average here for Tether dominance, then we can see something very interesting here. Ever since Tether dominance here has lost this uptrend here and fell below the 50-week SMA here, these times when it tried to reclaim it and fell back below, these were big trigger points here for Bitcoin. So of course here we see the top for Tether dominance was right at the same time as the bottom for Bitcoin here, the bottom of the bear market back in winter 2022. And then when it started falling below it every time, that's when we saw big rallies here for Bitcoin. Here we see Tether dominance fell down to the 50-week SMA, followed by a big rally here, or simultaneously Bitcoin had a big rally, came back above the 50-week SMA, Bitcoin started correcting here right at the top, and then once it fell below it, we saw another push from Bitcoin and so on, right? You can see this here once again. I mean, these are all examples that happen every time. You see Tether dominance back above the 50-week SMA, Bitcoin started consolidating and moving sideways here the moment it fell back below it, or at the same time Bitcoin put in a big push here again, consolidating while Tether dominance went up the moment it broke down here and now fell down below it completely, confirmed below it. That's when then Bitcoin went on a massive rally here and put in the new all-time highs and everything after that. So right now, the last time this happened, you can see here, we saw Tether dominance consolidating here in this range where Bitcoin put in its first top here in this cycle, right at 75K. You can see that's where Tether dominance bottomed out. It started rallying towards the 50-week SMA here. And at that time, Bitcoin was consolidating here and moving downwards and went down here all the way to 50K, where it then found its bottom. And the moment here, Tether dominance came back above the 50-week SMA and then lost it again, Bitcoin put in another big push here towards 108 and 109K, right? And now Tether dominance started rallying again, came back above the 50-week SMA. Throughout this whole time, Bitcoin was consolidating here and found our bottom here at 74K now. And now we just broke down below the 50-week SMA here again for Tether dominance, which of course is a strong indication historically, as we saw in all these previous events, that Bitcoin is putting in another big push here. And now it remains to be seen if we can confirm here below the 50-week SMA with Tether dominance, then we of course expect Bitcoin to put in massive moves here. So that becomes very, very interesting here. If Tether dominance drops down to somewhere between 3.8% again, then it's very likely that we already see new all-time highs for Bitcoin. So very strong indicator still here, the correlation between Bitcoin and Tether dominance. That currently as well, we are in the beginning stages of another massive push to the upside here in this bull market for Bitcoin. Alright guys, and that's it for me for today. Hope you enjoyed the analysis. If you did, make sure to smash up the like button down there to help me out with the algorithm. Drop me a comment, let me know what else you want to see, or even if you struggle with something, I'm happy to explain it down in the comments as well. And yeah guys, if you're new to the channel, a warm welcome to you guys. I hope you enjoyed the analysis, and I hope you will be joining us here on Team Bitcoin Easy, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well to get notified whenever I upload new videos. And a quick reminder again here guys, make sure to follow me over on X, Petter's Crypto over there. This is the easiest way to stay up to date with my analysis. Now of course I'll make sure to be tweeting or Xing, whatever you want to call it, today right around 14:30 Central European Time, when we get the announcement about the new CPI numbers, and hopefully they turn out bullish and we can see this continuation in the bull market. And also that our bottom for this correction here is in now. There we reached it here at this key level, which you can see here once again in the background, and that we're continuing upwards from here to put in new highs for Bitcoin. Everything is right on the edge now, but of course guys, I made sure to let you know what the key levels are, and if you see that we see a move below or above any of them, then you know there's a big opportunity on the table. But of course, at this point, I also have to mention, guys, this is not financial advice, purely for educational purpose, and hopefully get some entertainment out of it as well. Now, guys, I'm out of here. And as always, happy trading and see you soon.